Centuries ago, the empire was founded under a ruling dynasty, likely emerging from a period of conquest or the unification of smaller kingdoms. The first emperor consolidated power, establishing a rigid hierarchical government and a formal imperial court system. To ensure a stable bloodline and control succession, the imperial harem was created. Within its walls, concubines and consorts lived under strict regulations, their lives meticulously governed by tradition and protocol. During this era, the study of medicine gained prominence, driven primarily by the need to protect the imperial family from illness and disease. The consorts often competed against each other to fulfill beauty standards and increase their chances of becoming empress. This is why Mao Mao was teaching the current consorts the art of pleasing a man. Sometimes, technique can be more important than physical beauty. Gaining the emperor's favor is crucial, as those who succeed become high-ranking consorts, while those who fail remain low-ranking. Typically, every consort starts at a low rank, and in some cases, a consort may fall so far out of favor that the emperor gives her to someone else entirely. The empire invested heavily in medical research, fostering advancements in herbal medicine, toxicology, and various treatments. Over time, this led to the establishment of apothecaries and medical institutions, where knowledge was meticulously recorded in books and passed down through generations. To maintain order within the inner court, men were selected for their physical strength and assigned tasks requiring heavy labor. However, this arrangement led to unintended consequences, as some of these men engaged in illicit relationships with members of the emperor's harem. Initially, those caught in such acts were executed, but the problem persisted over the years. Over time, the clans began sending their daughters to the inner palace, hoping to secure the emperor's favor and strengthen their own influence within the empire. Before we proceed, let's take a closer look at the structure of the inner court. The emperor typically has several consorts whose primary role is to bear children. To assist them, each consort selects a number of ladies in waiting to manage their daily tasks and personal needs. Among these consorts, one is eventually chosen as the empress, who then assumes authority over the inner court and oversees its affairs. If you're curious about the power hierarchy of the current generation, you can explore it further in this video. 2 generations ago, the emperor of that time, like his predecessors, maintained a harem within the inner court. It was customary for the emperor to select an empress from among his consorts, and during this era, a consort known as Empress Regnant was chosen. While many speculated that her rise to power was not due to beauty alone, it was widely believed that her cunning and intelligence played a decisive role. Empress Regnant stands out as one of the most shrewd and calculating figures in this story. To address the ongoing issue of men in the inner court, Empress Regnant proposed a radical solution, leveraging the empire's advancements in medicine. Men chosen to work in the inner court were subjected to castration. Because few men agreed to this, the workforce within the inner court was significantly reduced. She then suggested increasing their power within the inner court, and this arrangement remains in effect to this day. This act, seen as a profound sacrifice, elevated their status and granted them greater power within the court. On the other side of the empire, a woman who would later be known as the Madam began her life as a courtesan in the red light district. Her story, though starkly different from that of Empress Regnant, would become equally significant in the unfolding history of the empire. Empress Regnant gave birth to the emperor's youngest son, and was never expected to ascend to the position of emperor. However, fate took a dark turn when all the other princes succumbed to the plague, or so the official records claim. Rumors circulated among the people that Empress Regnant herself orchestrated their deaths to secure her son's place as emperor. However, these theories remain unproven. Her son did indeed become emperor, though he is remembered as one of the most inept and detestable rulers in the empire's history. He showed little interest in governing, leaving the nation effectively under the control of his mother. Like his predecessors, he was expected to take multiple consorts, but his traumatic upbringing left him fearful of older women. Instead, he spent most of his time in the company of children. Among his consorts was Shinmei, the daughter of the Shi clan's leader. Shinmei was attended by a lady-in-waiting named Taiho. During this time, the emperor assaulted Taiho, resulting in her pregnancy. To protect the emperor's reputation, a false narrative was crafted. It was claimed that Taiho had an affair with a court physician. As part of the cover-up, Taiho, the physician, and her child were banished from the court. Another consort of the emperor was Anshi's older half-sister, who was attended by Anshi herself as her lady-in-waiting. This arrangement was a calculated move by Anshi's family, who were well aware of the emperor's fear of older women. They sent Anshi, who was only 11 years old at the time, to serve her half-sister in the inner court. Their plan succeeded. The emperor assaulted Anshi when she was just a child. The family, who had been closely watching her, quickly recognized her pregnancy and announced it, spreading the news to ensure that the emperor could not blame Anshi, as he had done with Taihu. As a result, her family's influence and power within the court grew significantly. The birth of Anshi's first child was overseen by a physician named Lumen, who performed a caesarean section. The procedure left Anshi with a lasting scar. As she grew older, Anshi became consumed by anger at the thought of the emperor replacing her with younger girls. She began to retaliate by assaulting and taunting him, often drawing attention to her scar. Over time, the emperor grew to fear her. During this period, Anshi's lady-in-waiting, Soiren, became a close confidant and friend. Around the same time that Anshi gave birth to the emperor's child, Soiren also gave birth to a daughter, whom she named Ado. Ado would later grow close to the prime minister of the time, who fell deeply in love with her. He vowed that she would be his only wife, and true to his word, when he rose to the position of prime minister, he chose Soiren's daughter as his sole consort. A bit of time ago, despite the rule that courtesans were not allowed to have children, the madam gave birth to a daughter named Fengxian. Fengxian grew up to become a highly respected courtesan in the Red Light District, though she distinguished herself by refusing to participate in sexual activity. Instead, she captivated her patrons through her artistic talents, particularly her skill in playing board games, which became her signature allure. Meanwhile, Anshi's continued assault of the emperor led to a second pregnancy, resulting in the birth of a child who would later be known as the Imperial brother. Despite being his mother, Anshi grew to harbor a deep hatred for him because of the way she conceived him. Meanwhile, during the same period that Anshi became pregnant with the Imperial brother, the prime minister's only consort also discovered she was pregnant. However, due to the complexities of her pregnancy and the fact that it coincided with the delivery of the Imperial brother, her condition was treated as a lower priority. She did not receive the medical care she desperately needed. To save her life and that of her child, the physician Lumen made the difficult decision to remove her womb. The child she delivered was in poor health, and to ensure his survival, she orchestrated a substitution with the Imperial brother. Anshi, who felt no attachment to her own child and wished never to see him, agreed to this arrangement. Back in the Red Light District, Lakan, a renowned strategist in the Li military, visited Fengxian and challenged her to a game of Go. Lakan, who had never been defeated in his military career or in any game, suffered his first loss at Fengxian's hands. This unexpected defeat left a lasting impression on him. Over time, Fengxian and Lakan fell deeply in love. However, as Fengxian's reputation and value as a courtesan grew, it became increasingly difficult for Lakan to redeem her due to his limited financial means. In a risky move, Fengxian decided to conceive a child with Lakan, knowing that, as a courtesan, bearing a child would ruin her reputation and lower her value, making it possible for Lakan to afford her. Fengxian became pregnant. But unbeknownst to her, Lakan was sent away on a military expedition. He had planned to return within a year and a half, but the mission kept him away for 3 years. During this time, Fengxian contracted an illness that left her mentally unstable. Consumed by the belief that Lakan had betrayed her, she began to treat her daughter, who was also Lakan's child, with cruelty and neglect. Meanwhile, in the Imperial court, Feng Ming, Ado's head lady in waiting, accidentally fed the Imperial brother poison, resulting in his death. The blame blame fell on Lumen, the court physician who was banished from the palace as a scapegoat for the tragedy. Around the same time, Soyun was assigned to serve as Jinshi's lady-in-waiting. On the other side of the court, Lishu was sent by her family to become a consort for the emperor. Seeing how Anshi's family had exploited their own daughter for financial gain, others attempted to use the same cruel method. However, Ado and the prime minister, aware of the emperor's despicable nature, took steps to protect her. Ado, separated from both her biological son and her adopted son, felt profound loneliness. Over time, she and the prime minister grew to see Lishu as their own daughter, forming a bond that brought them solace. Gyokuyou entered the inner court at the age of 14, beginning her life as a consort. Around the same time, the prime minister ascended to the throne as the new emperor. Knowing that Lishu would be used as a political pawn if sent back to her family, he chose to keep her in the inner court as one of his consorts, ensuring her protection. Lihua, a distant relative of the emperor, was sent by her family to become a consort alongside her paternal cousin, Shin. Thanks to her family's prominence, Lihua quickly amassed one of the largest courts of ladies-in-waiting among the consorts, with Shin serving as her head lady-in-waiting. Gyokuyou rose to the position of high consort at the age of 18, thanks to the recommendation of Jinshi. However, due to her foreign heritage and lack of family support, her influence within the court remained limited. Meanwhile, Fuyou was forced by her family to leave her childhood sweetheart, whom she deeply loved, and enter the inner court as a consort. Renowned for her extraordinary dancing skills, she was asked to perform for the emperor. However, during her performance, she deliberately fell, causing the emperor to lose interest in her. Both Lihua and Gyokuyou became pregnant around the same time. Lihua gave birth to a son, while Gyokuyou bore a daughter named Lingli. Tragically, both children were poisoned by the lead-based face powder commonly used by the consorts. Around this time, Mao Mao was kidnapped and forced to work in the inner court. The kidnapping occurred at a very strange time, leading some to believe it was a calculated move to bring Mao Mao into the inner court.